Okay, so anyway, yeah, guys, this is Mind the Meta. It's a show where basically we talk about. Oh, it was being weird. But it's a show where we talk about the League of Legends metagame, general balance stuff, trends in competitive play, and stuff like that. So bear with us because we're having some issues just because this is the first time we've done this. It's kind of experimental at the moment, but thank you so much for joining us. And this is Zealot TKO. He's a Challenger tier support player.
Hey, what's up, guys?
Yeah, he's awesome. So, yeah, actually, you can check out his stream as well at twitch.tv/ZealotTKO. I'll post that in the chat. And he streams his solo queue quite a bit. He's very informative and definitely worth checking out. And yeah, so first of all, we're going to talk about the 4.2 patch notes. And I mean, was there anything when you were looking over this or as you've been playing that really stands out that's like really significant?
In 4.2, they nerfed a couple of like the really strong champions that really needed a nerf, to be honest. Mm-hmm. The big ones that I'm talking about are primarily let's see, Thresh got a little nerf, Yasuo and Zigs were like the really big ones that like really stood out to me.
Yeah.
Just because like everybody would play them and they just all were really like, ask anybody, everyone would say they were pretty overpowered. So I think those were like the big three highlights of 4.2.
So yeah, I guess I'm actually curious what you think of the Thresh changes, so I'll go over those. It was actually a relatively small change, but I've played Thresh and he feels like I was surprised how much weaker he feels in lane with just the 25 range nerf. So yeah, he used to be 475 range, now he's 450, and that's actually the same as Morgana's range is now, whereas he used to be 25 range more than Morgana. So like what do you think of that? Do you think it's really a big deal, or?
Well, yeah, like when I started playing after 4.2 came out, I could feel a little bit of a difference too, but it wasn't like a major change. So I think it was a good update just in general, because Thresh was like really strong, and he still is pretty strong, but it just subtracts a little bit from his lane trading potential, which I think is pretty good balance to his champion. He has a little bit harder time laning against people with like really long range auto attacks, like Annie and like Zyra even, and Caitlyn is pretty tough to lane against this Thresh now, just because you can't like it's a lot harder to auto attack them without them taking like a really big advantage out of it. Like I was actually walking up to Caitlyn to try to auto attack her in lane today, and she was able to get like 3 auto attacks off on me, just like auto attacking, cutting backwards, auto attacking, cutting backwards, before I even got in range to auto attack her once. So I think overall it was a pretty good. I think it was a pretty good change to him. It's kind of hard to nerf Thresh just because his kit is inherently like pretty powerful. Like all of his moves are really strong moves.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I think it was a good change. I think he'll still remain one of the like the big supports in like the pro scene and stuff, but I think it helped balance him out a little bit.
Yeah, I actually almost feel like for them to balance Thresh, like his kit is ridiculously powerful, so for them to like balance Thresh without really destroying his identity as a champion, I think they almost have to just make his lane phase weak. Like, if he can be a lane bully, then he doesn't deserve to have all that utility,
Yeah, it is true. Thresh does kind of.
Oh, go ahead.
Thresh does kind of have like everything right now. Like he's a pretty tanky support, not as tanky as like Leona, but still like relatively tanky. Like I'd put him in under the tank category. He's also got a lot of utility, like Janna and some other like squisher supports have. And then on top of that, he's got some pretty decent burst damage when you charge up his flay passive.
Mm-hmm.
So he's kind of got all 3 of the big aspects of the support all in just one champion. So.
Yeah, like I remember The way Thresh is right now actually kind of feels like how Sona was before all the big nerfs to her.
In season 3.
Yeah, because she was this huge lane bully, and then she also had this really powerful AoE ultimate, and it basically they had to make her really squishy in lane before she really kind of fell into balance. And you might argue that she's a little weak now, but I feel like Thresh is kind of going down the same path a little bit.
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if they decided to try to nerf Thresh again in like a really small way. Like that's kind of seemed to be the way that they've been going about it. They've made small little changes to Thresh that have kind of just been like just kind of taking a little stab at his power, but not really breaking him.
I actually really like what they've been doing, like balance-wise, in the last probably 6 months. They used to like try to fix a champion all at once, and they do like huge changes, and then it would cause like more issues in a completely different way. And so they're finally like doing this baby steps thing, and it's really nice.
Yeah, I agree.
So, actually, Zigs is one of the other changes you mentioned. I forgot what the other one was, but let's talk about Zigs right now. Okay, Yasuo. So, Zigs is kind of interesting. Like, it seems almost like the change to Zigs really brought about this siege-oriented metagame, and actually now that I say that doesn't make any sense because it started in Korea with Needly, but Zigs was like one of the big ones, and I feel like a trend that we've been seeing a lot, especially in competitive play, is wave clear is one of the most important things in a champion. Like if you can't clear waves really fast, you like with some kind of AoE, like you're basically going to lose the game, because regardless of whether you can fight your opponent can just shove you in and eventually like either siege or take objectives or do something. Like when you're shoved in, you have to go farm your minions, and then they can go counter jungle. They have freedom to do whatever they want while you're covering your lanes. So I mean, map pressure is really important, but specifically the Ziggs changes, the big thing that kind of broke Ziggs, that made him like ridiculously strong, was the explosive minefield change, where it would do 100% damage to all minions even after the first tick, and they reverted that. Originally it was at the 40% damage for each mine, and they made that to 100%, and then they were like, oh wait, that was a bad idea. Like clearing an entire wave with one ability is really broken, so they switched it back. And then they also, let's see, what did they do with this passive? I think what they did, okay, it's the same at rank, like all the numbers are really, there's a lot of numbers, but it's basically the same at rank 1 and the same at level 1 and the same at level 18, but then in the middle they reduce the damage relatively significantly. So that cuts down on a lot of his harass in lane and a lot of his ability to take down towers, which was, I mean, basically he didn't lose lane. He could just shove you in and then kill your towers, and like there was nothing you could do against Ziggs. So, I mean, do you have anything to add to that? I mostly I was just going over and like covering all the Ziggs changes, but like what's your opinion on all that?
Yeah, like the big thing to me, the really big change that they made to Ziggs is like you were saying at first, his explosive minefield. Now that it only does 40% damage to minions after the first one that they hit, it makes it a lot more difficult for him to wave clear like he used to be. Like before, you could have 3 or 4 people like trying to siege mid, and so like you take out like the enemy minions like super quick, and then Ziggs would just be sitting at his turret. He'd like throw out his explosive minefield, the rest of his abilities, and he'd be able to clear waves before you could even like attack the turret. And so now with explosive minefield, he can still kind of do that, but it takes a little bit more time, and that gives you a little bit of time to like siege the turret.
Yeah.
For real. So it kind of made it so Ziggs can't just hold the lane by himself forever, regardless of how many people try to siege. So I think that was a really good change, because before 4.2, you'd have a Ziggs just sitting at mid turret like the entire game, and mid turret would never go down because he was just always there. So.
Oh yeah, I feel like I remember one game there was a Lucian and a Ziggs. I think it was Alliance versus Copenhagen Wolves in week 1 of the EU LCS, and Copenhagen Wolves got their hands on, actually that was Kale, that wasn't Ziggs, but I mean it's the same principle. Like I remember there was Lucian and Kale in the same game for Copenhagen Wolves, and they just like had Lucian and Kale constantly rotating to mid, like they would take turns going to mid and clearing the entire wave, like just with one ability, or like ridiculously fast. And Alliance couldn't do anything. Like Alliance made a lot of other mistakes in that game, but they couldn't do anything. And that, like, Zigs is even more ridiculous in that way, that he could do that by himself.
Yeah.
Which is just ridiculous. So definitely, I feel good about those Zigs changes. Like, have you played mid much at all? Like, how do you feel as or against Zigs, especially like at the challenger level of play that you're at?
Ziggs is a pain to lane against.
Still is?
I think, yeah, he's still a pain to lane against. He's still really, really strong. Probably like one of the top 3 mid laners still. It's just, he's got so much harass potential, and like none of his abilities really cost that much mana, and so he's able to just kind of keep throwing abilities at you forever, and if you're not really good at dodging, you're going to lose lane early. And on top of that, he's almost always going to outfarm you just because of his kit. It makes it so easy for him to pretty much CS almost perfectly once you get the hang of it. So it's still really hard to lane against Zigs.
Yeah. Okay. So, but I mean, they seem to have dealt with the part that was like really ridiculous. We'll see how he does in competitive play once these changes actually start affecting competitive play. But I have a feeling he's gonna be picked a little less. Actually, I was looking at the charts as far as win rates. He's still really high up there, but he's not like number 1 anymore. So definitely the changes did help.
Yeah.
And then, okay, so the last one that you mentioned that was a really big deal was Yasuo. So, the problem with Yasuo before, I guess, I mean, honestly, I'm going to hand this over to you, because Yasuo is the only champion that I've actually never played.
And actually, I haven't played Yasuo either.
Okay.
So this might be a little bit hard, but
we'll work together on it. We'll figure it out.
From what I can tell, and I've played against Yasuo in lane before a lot, and from what I can tell, his kit is just so freaking good that there's like just no way to beat him. Even after these changes, he's still really, really difficult to lane against, and he's still going to become like a late game god and just be able to wreck in team fights. Like, there are ways to kind of deny him, but a good Yasuo just still can carry games by himself. Even after these changes, like these changes were kind of nice, because in lane before 4.2, lane against Yasuo is kind of like, I never knew, like, it just felt like I could never actually put damage on him, because his passive wind wall was just on such a short cooldown time.
Well, it's like 20 seconds, isn't it? That's
what?
It's like 20 seconds, isn't it? That's relatively long.
They changed it, right?
The cooldown of Windwall? No, I don't think they touched that.
Or not Windwall. Sorry, his like.
Oh, the
his
shield. Yeah.
What I'm talking about.
Yeah, definitely that. Because wasn't it what he was doing is he could charge it really fast just by dashing through every minion in the wave.
Yeah, sorry, that's what I was talking about. I didn't get the.
Yeah. So yeah, what he it's called Way of the Wanderer, but the way, actually, I'm gonna go to the League of Legends wiki just to make sure I get this right. But I think the way that it works is, as Yasuo moves, he generates flow. And isn't it when he's at 100 flow, he gets this shield? So the next time he takes damage, the shield goes up automatically. So before, it was just charging really fast, because what he could do is he could use his his dash, to just go through the minions, and it's on like basically no cooldown at all, and charge it really fast. And of course, while he's charging it, he's also like dodging all your abilities and stuff. So it is like impossible to damage him. I mean, that's what basically happens, right?
Yeah. When you combine that with just his damage output, that is really strong early game, it makes laning against Yasuo, especially like levels 1 through 3, really, really difficult.
Yeah.
And so they increase the movement that he has to move. I don't know. They increase the amount he has to move by 15% to get the shield to get his passive shield. But he still is like really, really strong late game, and he can still just completely wreck people. Like, he can just wreck team fights by himself still.
Yeah, so
because of all of his armor penetration that he has in his kit, and the fact that He has that like whole like double the crit chance or whatever.
Yeah. So his ultimate gives you free armor penetration when you activate it, right? And